There we go. We're live and we're so excited to come here with you, our family. So, to all of you on Facebook, on YouTube, and Periscope, come on in. Let's enjoy a fun morning together. We've got Rhonda, we've got Bex, and today our special guest is Stephen Williams. And I know you're going to be so excited to hear his stories just as we were. And share it out. Share it with your friends who'd like to know this. I know I'm hoping that my daughter in law watches today. And we're so excited and blessed to have you. Rhonda, tell us how you found Stephen.
Thanks, Teresa. I found Stephen. I was listening to Euphomet's Night Drift, and Jim Perry, who we've had on our show before. He was interviewing this man who did spirit rescue, and I was very intrigued because I really like the idea of spirit rescue. And this is Stephen Williams from Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue, and he works that business with, or that service, I would say, with a partner of his, and we'll get him to introduce himself. But Stephen has been doing this work for 18 years, and he's evolved and he's grown in his own work. And Stephen, why don't you give us your little 411 and how you got into it and how you decided this was a path you wanted to go into?
Well, thank you for having me
Welcome.
here. And, really enjoy the opportunity to be here and talk about spirit rescue. It didn't start out that way for me originally. I just basically got into paranormal investigating after going on a ghost tour down in St. Augustine, Florida. And then when I got back, I found a couple of ladies here that were doing that kind of work and joined up with them. And we went into people's homes for 2 or 3 years, and we would try to record voices and get evidence and that kind of thing. And then in a theater in a little town north of Memphis, I heard during the investigation, I heard a little girl speak out loud when I was playing some music from her time period. So that was the proof that I'd been searching for, that there is an afterlife. And after that, it was like, okay, what do we do now where we can really help these trapped spirits? And eventually I met a medium who introduced me to the concept of spirit rescue. And I've been doing that for the past 13 years with different partners.
So you've gone pretty much way beyond the fact of gathering proof that there is a spiritual life. You know it in your bones, and you don't think there's any reason to really collect proof anymore. You're just going straight to like contact and just helping these people cross over into where they need to be if they want to. Is that how it works for you?
Right. When we go into someone's home, we don't carry a lot of equipment and we don't spend a lot of time there. Normally, we're in maybe an hour or two. And because I work with really gifted mediums, I have some of the clear abilities myself. We're able to go in, in a short time period and connect with any spirit energies who are there, who are lost or confused. And then we do some counseling with them. We hear their story, find out why they're there, where they've come from, what their desires and needs are. And once we get to a point where they're ready to release and transition, we're able to connect them with their loved ones on the other side. So it's a pretty fast process, actually. I've kind of honed it to simple methods over the years, and it's not very complicated.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So when did you realize you had this ability? Like were you born with it, or like how did you how did you discover that you had this ability to communicate with spirits?
In the beginning, when I got started 18 years ago in 2002, when I joined those two ladies on their little team, I really didn't know that I had any of those type of clair abilities. And it started for me about 3 years later. I was in a little building on the grounds of an antebellum home, and I started feeling like a tingling sensation, is the only way I can describe it. And it was up around my crown chakra. And then by working with different mediums over the years, I've learned that if I feel that, it's an interaction with their spirit energy is what it is. So it's my energy field is interacting with theirs. And if I feel on the right side, I know it's masculine. It's masculine energy. If it's on the left side, it's feminine. If If I feel it around ear level, I know from experience that's what we would call an earthbound spirit. Their vibration's lower. Their awareness is lower and denser. And then if I feel it higher up, I know that is a person's crossed over loved one. Many times we'll go into homes, and the reason a spirit is creating disturbances is because they want to get a message to their loved one. So sometimes it is a relative who is there rather than an earthbound spirit. And then if I feel it really, really high, like at the top of my crown chakra, I know from experience and from working with mediums who can see these energies that those are the angelics, master type energies and guides. So it's very handy. They've kind of mapped out my crown chakra to give me a sense of what's going on there. And I could go into anyone's home and do that very easily.
Love that.
So you are the equipment, basically.
Yeah. I'm kind of like, you see on the TV shows, they use these EMF meters, they call them K2 meters. So I am, in a sense, like that, because I'm sensing their energy. But I'm able to, more so than those pieces of equipment, I'm able to distinguish things, whether it's gender. Also, I'm clairvoyant and clairaudient to a certain extent. So sometimes I'll hear names. I'll hear words that they're projecting. I'll get a kind of a visual image of what the spirit looks like, maybe a sense of their age and that kind of thing. And I have had experiences where I just seen them perfectly and heard them perfectly, but it kind of comes and goes for me. So I've been blessed to work with a lot of mediums that are natural born mediums who can really tune in to those thought transmissions and get those visuals clearer than I can and quicker than I can usually.
It's amazing.
Now you work with somebody else, don't you? You work with a spirit to help rescue.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this story. This is a
Okay.
really interesting story. We really like this one.
Yeah, my physical partner is a young lady named Kayla Bales, and Kayla's a natural born medium. And when she was a young child, she actually had a spirit companion named Lillian who lived in her house in the closet. But back in 2007, I was invited to speak at a conference in St. Augustine, Florida. And previous to that, that was in September of 2007. But in July of that same year, my daughter and I were there on a family vacation. And it was the last night before we had to come home, and we were riding bicycles through the old town part of St. Augustine, Florida. And there's a little cemetery behind the town. It's called Tolamanto Cemetery. And there was a little alley to the right side of the cemetery between the cemetery and a house that was being used as a shop. And as we drove past the cemetery on our bicycles, I could sense that there was a child spirit there in that alley. So I told my daughter to go on down to the entrance of the cemetery. And I turned my bicycle and then got off. And I had a little piece of equipment with me, the little EMF meter that would light up and make noise. And but I knew there was a little girl there, and I knew what she looked like. And I could see her in my mind's eye. She was 6 years old. She was wearing a blue dress. She had blonde hair. I actually knew what her name was. Her name was Alice. And as I would make statements, I would say, you're a little girl, and she would respond with the equipment. So that lasted about 2 or 3 minutes, and it was getting late, and we had to go back to our hotel and get ready to leave the next morning. So when I went down to the entrance of the cemetery, my daughter was talking to this lady standing there who was taking all these photographs, spirit photography type photographs, and she had some amazing photos. And I said, well, I don't know what to make of this, but I think I had an interaction with a spirit child down there. And I said, I described what she looked like, and that lady said, oh, we see her all the time on the front porch of that house. So she was a fixture there, a spirit child that a lot of people saw. And then I came back in September that same year, and I went to this conference, and I met a medium named Linda from Jacksonville, Florida. I didn't tell Linda anything about my experience seeing the little girl there. And as we, one night when we were coming back from downtown, we were walking past that cemetery, and she said, look, up on the front porch, there's a little girl up there. And she started describing Alice. And then later that night, she went back and helped Alice to transition. So after that, Alice started to appear around me. And now she helps us. When we're working with child spirits, she'll show up sometimes automatically, or sometimes we call on her. And she has a golden glow around her. The mediums that see her say she has this beautiful golden glow. She's kind of sparkly. So she's done some work on the other side, I do believe. And but her purity and her innocence is so calming to child spirits that she's actually a rescue who now works in spirit rescue, which is really cool.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Do you think she was just waiting there for you to come and be the catalyst?
Well, she definitely was very comfortable with me, and I've thought about this a lot. St. Augustine is really important in my career. That's where the little ghost tour I went on in the beginning that got me started. And I used to go there as a child. My parents always would take us down to Florida on our vacations, and I've been in St. Augustine many times and always felt so familiar. So I really feel like it's a past life thing, and I almost feel like Alice and I are connected in a past life. And so maybe, my guides orchestrated it where I would meet her eventually and help her.
Yeah, destiny, right?
That's pretty cool. That gives me the shivers.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
When I've read when I've opened the Akashic records, and I'm bringing through messages for people like those that have done Reiki and those that do a lot of the other energy healing on the earth, the angels around them told me that they see these people as being on the front lines helping, whereas they are in the background helping. The angels and the guides are helping. So they really see you and healers and people like this on the front lines doing the battles, and they do work to coordinate things to bring their people to you. And there's even like a waiting list on the other side. I was like, okay, he's done. Now let's get you in. Or, it's kind of cute.
Yeah, I definitely feel a lot of this is orchestrated, and sometimes it's a waiting game for you to develop to a certain point where you're ready and open to it, I from my own experience, and this is just my own opinion, I don't feel like angels and those types of angelics will step in unless they're asked to. It's almost like they're kind of prohibited because of free will, and it takes a human agent because people ask me all the time, well, why do you have to be involved in spirit rescue? Well, and it always troubled me when I would come across a child spirit. Why hasn't an angel taken this child onto the other side? But children are little people, they have free will. And until someone like me or someone else that's doing this kind of work comes in and assesses the situation, and then will call on the angelics or call on the loved ones to come step forward. And then it's kind of our job to become like an energetic bridge between the lower vibration of these earthbound spirits and their crossed over relatives who are really close by. I mean, they're there right next to them. They're not aware of them. So we kind of facilitate a connection between the two.
Wow. What's that moment feel like?
So they like have a veil between the veils, right? So it's weird.
Yeah. What was your question, Teresa?
It was, what does that moment feel like when you've made that connection for them and those who they need to be with, when they cross over?
Yeah.
Feel them,
Well, I feel their vibration, the earthbound spirits, I feel their vibration around ear level for me. And then when they connect and they make that choice to release, and they start their ascension and they go, it's an awareness thing, it's a vibrational frequency type change. I can actually feel that rise all the way to the top of my crown chakra. So yeah, it's a very palpable thing for me. I feel it as a sensation. So I can actually feel that vibrational change. Now, the mediums that I've worked with describe it differently. One young lady said that it was like when that crossing type transpired, it was like a slit of light that would open up, like an elevator door almost would open up. And she could see inside this dazzling light, as far as she could look, were people. look like figures. And one would step forward, and that would be the perfect person for that earthbound spirit that they were hoping to see or looking for. Another medium I worked with described it as horizon that opened up, and she could see figures as far as she could see into the light. So everybody, I think, experiences it a little differently, but it's the same. That's the same process.
That is beautiful. I love that so much. Do you have a story about maybe like your most profound experience doing this?
Doing the rescue work?
Yeah, doing rescue.
Oh gosh, I've done hundreds, if not thousands. So it's hard to pick one. I usually talk about a little boy named Henry, and he was. He actually has not transitioned yet, as far as I know. We worked with him, so it's a free will thing again. Maybe it's Henry's in his best interest to have the experience of being an earthbound spirit. And the other thing I think is that time is different in the spirit world. What seems to us like years could seem like, a day or a week or a month to someone in that situation. But Henry, we got called to a rental house, and there was a young girl there named Gracie that told her mom she would see a little boy named Henry, that he said his name was Henry, and he was waiting for her at the back door every day to play. And Henry was wearing knickerbockers. So that kind of dated him to the 1920s or 1930s. She said Henry was wearing capris. So he was wearing knickerbockers, but he was quite amazing. He was doing all kinds of things that was, kind of scaring the family a little bit. One time the mother went into the shower and he slammed the door behind her. He was kind of a prankster. He was, when I would take music in from that time period, he would just, I had equipment with me at that time. I was just starting to develop my players. He would just make that equipment go crazy. And so the other thing he was doing that was interesting was when they first moved into this rental house, their utility bill was about $200 or $300 a month. Well, it got up to about $1,200. So he was drawing all this power from the house, the power source, and they eventually moved. It was scaring them, and they just couldn't afford that, so they moved. And the last night, they moved, and then I said, "Well, can I go and stay in the house this last night before you have to turn in your keys?" And they said, "Yeah." And I was in there, and it was quite interesting. And this huge, amazing thunderstorm rolled through, and it was so much lightning and everything. And at one point, the power went out. And so I was walking through the house with a flashlight to try to find the breaker box, the fuse box. And all of a sudden, it felt like someone had dumped a huge tub of ice cold water on me. And I heard a giggle, and I turned and looked, and there was a little girl that kind of ran past the doorway in the dining room there, and she was wearing a long white dress. Now, I knew she was there, as well as Henry, because I had a medium friend that went in with me and connected with both of those children. So I knew she was in there, and I went looking for her, and she had vanished. And then later that night, as I got ready to get a little sleep, I went down on a couch and sat there, and she looked like she was about 5 or 6 years old. So I used to sing to my daughter when she was about that age, when she was trying to go to sleep. And so I started singing to her, and then I could feel her get closer and closer. And I could feel that there was a crossed over higher vibrational spirit with her, which I assumed to be an aunt or grandmother. And at one point, the child spirit got up on my lap because my whole body became electrified. And so I did connect her with that loved one that was there, and she did transition. But Henry was pretty stubborn; couldn't really get him to let go. And then about a month later, I met a medium named Rebecca, and I sat there, and I was going to see if we could maybe connect with him and help him. And they had bulldozed the house, and it was just a pile of rubble. And on top of the pile of rubble was a chair, believe it or not, like 10 or 12 feet up in the air. I thought, that is so weird. Why did somebody put a chair up there? And I said, do you see anybody here? And she said, yeah, there's a little boy sitting on that chair. So that was Henry. And I did go back there about a year later. He wouldn't really interact with us that day. I guess he was playing King of the Mountain or whatever. But so I went there about a year later. The whole site was overgrown, and he was there. And I felt him get in the car with me. I talked to him a little bit as I was driving away. And when I got down to a certain point, he went back. So he's probably still there, having some kind of fun.
Yeah, he's enjoying it too much, huh?
Yeah. But that's one of my favorite ones because there was a rescue there. And also, it kind of shows that there is free will involved here, and children are protected. They have guardians around them. So I love that situation. Yeah, he'll eventually release. He knows he can. So it must be a time thing for him. Yeah.
Now, do you find that spirits come to you now, or do you have to go to them?
Good question.
They come a lot. Generally, I ask my guys to keep my house kind of spirit free, so I have my own space here. But I feel spirits, they're attracted to people. So you can walk into a place like Walmart or the grocery store, I'll feel someone, because I'm always open. I never close down because I want to make a connection if someone needs help. And we were actually traveling over to East Tennessee not too long ago, last year, and had a spirit gentleman get in the car with us. We were driving about 70 miles an hour down the interstate. And he was looking for his mother, so he had sensed our vibration or seen maybe a light there with us, and so he got in the car with us. And sometimes I'm the first person in our group who senses the energy, so I could tell it was male. I kind of focused on him. It looked to me like he was wearing a hunting jacket, and I could tell he was maybe about late 30s, early 40s, something like that. So I was getting a little visual on him. And so my partner, Kayla, really tuned in, and she's more clairvoyant and clairaudient than I am. And he was a young man who was from World War II times, and he must have lived in that area, and he was looking for his mother. So we gave him a chance to tell his story, which is very important. And then I found out, what his needs were, and then we were able to connect him with his mother, and he transitioned and went with her.
Wow. In the car at 70 miles an hour. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you that. I had this question that's been bothering me for a long time, watching Ghost Hunters International and Ghost Hunters here and Ghost Hunters there or whatever, or Ghosts on Vacation. But I guess it's Ghost Adventures. Sorry, same thing. It's always nighttime. Well, except I guess when you're going down the road at 70 miles an hour. But they often go in and investigate in the evening. And I was wondering, why is that? Why is the veil thinner then, or is it different energy in the evenings, or what? Why?
No,
just wondering.
Spirits are active 24/7. We've done investigations in early morning and held spirits cross, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. That's just all Hollywood, and that's all entertainment, and it looks scary or whatever, for them to turn the lights out. It's just ridiculous, the whole thing, and the taunting and the disrespect that you see on some of these shows is just, to me, is really abhorrent and unnecessary. I mean, those people wouldn't go into a bar somewhere and antagonize people like that to get beat up.
Right.
Many times I think they do get spirits with it, because it's so disrespectful. It really is.
Exactly. I love.
So you're more like social services. More like, spirit counselors or something like that.
Spirit social services or first responders. And I met a medium named Audrey Abernathy. She was an English medium. I met her about 10 years ago, and she was in her 80s. She's passed into spirit now, but right after World War II, they would do things in England called, what she called them, sending circles. So they would gather weekly and raise the vibration by singing or their techniques, and then they would ask their guides to bring in any spirits who were, confused or lost or needed help, finding their way to the next level. And one thing she told me that I've never forgotten, she said, when you connect with a spirit, ask as many questions as you can think of, because the more they're able to tell their story, the more burdens they're able to release. And their vibration actually increases as they're telling their story to a certain extent. And then it's kind of, there's a lot of psychology involved and a lot of counseling type situations where you're trying to find out what the regrets are, you know, and what they would, if they could continue their existence, what they love to do in this lifetime. And we had one guy, he was not going to leave his house. He had built this really beautiful house in Midtown Memphis. And I mean, it was magnificent. And he said, no, I'm not leaving. This is my crowning achievement. So we said, well, what if you could build a better house? What if you could build the most beautiful house you could possibly imagine? And once he heard that, he was like, okay, I like that. I like that idea, because I guess he was a builder. So in this state of existence, he was just roaming around his crowning achievement, but he really wanted to be building. So what we hear from spirits who talk to us from the other side is that you can pretty much create your own reality. So you have interests here, you can pursue those interests on the other side.
Awesome. So I think what I'm understanding, which is such an important message for, you know, the living, is that the more that you are weighed down and burdened by your life, the harder it's going to be for you to cross over at the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we've come across spirits who are attached to objects. One lady had, we went to a house and this lady had antiques in there. She would go to yard sales. She'd go to all kinds of antique stores, and that was her business. She would turn those around and sell them. Well, she had bought it was the largest paint by number thing I've ever seen. You know, when I was a child, it used to be like, I don't know, the size of a piece of paper, you know, 8.5 by 11. This thing was huge. And the medium I was working with got a dialogue going with this spirit lady and said, why are you here? And she said, well, my daughter, I painted the set of 4 paintings. My daughter broke the set up. And I'm really upset about that. So she was staying on the earth plane because of something she had created. And she was upset that her daughter, you know, didn't respect that, the work that she had done. So yeah, my advice is always don't let anything hold you here. Even loved ones, I've come across situations where loved ones grieve their relatives so much that they hold them here earthbound. I'm a massage therapist, and I had a client on the table one time, and her mom came through, and I could tell this lady was earthbound. And I said to my client, she's open to hearing messages and things. I said, I didn't know anything about her mother. I said, is your mother in spirit, and are you really grieving her? And she said, yeah. And so I talked to the lady in spirit and said, you know, you can really help your daughter a lot more if you go ahead and release and transition and get some healing and some instruction. I said, you can come back and be like a guardian angel for her. And she liked that idea. And then her daughter realized that would be better for her mother too. So a lot of times grief will hold people. There's all kinds of different reasons that they stay here.
Oh, what amazing work.
Yeah, it's so comforting to know there is another side, and that even when you leave, you can come back and visit if you want to. And I think a lot of people never realize that, and that's why they hang around until, like, I know some hung around until, you know, they other loved ones went because they wanted to wait for them, but they didn't realize they could go and come back again. So that's interesting. That's interesting.
The first time I ever experienced that, we went into a house in East Memphis, and there was a woman there, earthbound woman, and her earthbound son. And the son was mentally challenged. He was not thinking correctly and so forth. And so when we connected with her, we said, why don't you go ahead and we explained to her that she didn't have to be here, and she could help him better if she transitioned. And she thought about it a little while, and she said, well, I don't want to leave him. I said, well, you can come back immediately. You know, you can come back really quickly and help him. And she did. And she did come back immediately, which I kind of thought maybe there was some healing or some other situation that would have to take a little time. But she came back immediately. And her vibration was just through the roof. And he was able to, at that point, get a little bit more clarity, and they both went together. So, yeah, it's almost like you get a hall pass in a sense, and you can kind of come and go. I've had situations where clients will find pennies, dimes and nickels, and feathers in their homes, and that's typically going to be those loved ones who come around showing their support, or maybe they'll come in times of crisis to give messages and things.
Yeah, I know. My daughter-in-law always finds dimes from her parents that have gone on, and she keeps a little jar of them. So yeah, it's kind of nice that they leave her dimes everywhere, and it's nice. They go, they come. So.
We had one case where we got called to the house, and what was going on, there was a mother and a 16 or 17-year-old daughter there. And the daughter was waking up every morning with pennies on her pillow. And that was quite, odd and disturbing to them. They didn't know why that was happening or where it was coming from. They were actually pretty frightened about it. And I was working with a medium named Stephanie at the time. And when we went there, I could feel there was a crossed over female spirit there. It felt like a grandmother. And Stephanie made contact with her, and it was the grandmother. It was the mother of the lady there. And the reason she was bringing those pennies and putting them on her granddaughter's pillow every morning was that her daughter was considering marrying this man, this other guy. And the grandmother, with her wider perspective on the other side, could see that was going to be a really bad choice. And she did not want this man in her daughter and granddaughter's life. So the way she validated who she was, she told Stephanie her favorite hymn, and it was kind of an obscure hymn, but as soon as Stephanie passed on that information to the mother and granddaughter, they knew exactly who it was. And I've always wondered, did she marry the man, or did she take her mother's advice, or did she follow her own instincts or whatever? Hopefully she listened to her mother.
Wow. Okay, but why do they leave pennies pennies and dimes? Why not $100 bills?
I know.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yes.
I've always wondered that, why they don't leave like gold coins or something like that. But you always hear about pennies from heaven, so they just that's just the way they typically do it. Now, I have had clients who will find dimes. And the other thing I always tell my clients is when they find those coins, look at the date, because a lot of times it's a message. I went into one house and we went into a room. I went to the room with the client. The room was clear, and we finished our walkthrough, and we went back into that same room, and there were 2 pennies laying on the bed. And I said, pick them up and look at the dates and tell me if there's anything significant there. And she said, 1973. That's the year I was born. So it was definitely a message from her loved ones saying, we're around you, and watching over you, and we're aware of what's going on here. We support you.
That's so beautiful. Oh, I love this. So if someone is experiencing a spirit in their home, or maybe, a spirit visitation of any kind, what advice do you have for them?
Well, they need to try to find someone in their area, that has the ability to go in and make a connection. If they call in your typical paranormal investigation group that uses equipment, that's a really kind of a cumbersome process where they'll bring in equipment and set up, it may take hours and hours, or they may be there overnight. If there's children in the home, typically, we never allow children to be there, so I would assume most groups ask for the children to be cared for away from the site. So that disrupts the family life. And those groups may make a recording of a voice, but they really can't get a dialogue going that's really productive. And then many times what they'll do is, once they get the evidence that they're looking for and make those presentations to the client, which confirms to the client that something's happening, then that's all they can provide. So the family's pretty much in the same predicament they were in before. So I'd say it's really important to try to find someone that maybe on their website they talk about using a medium, or someone who can actually establish some spirit communications. So most of the times, in my experience, when spirits create disturbances, it's not to be threatening. It's usually a cry for help. So if you look at it from the spirit's point of view, someone moves into a house where they live, and they consider it their space, and it's, like, why are these people in my house? I want to find out why they're here, that kind of thing. So they'll do things like knock, they'll touch, they'll make a voice or whatever, and it's really, they're just trying to get attention. So it's important to try to find someone, I think, that has a team has some intuitives on it.
Do you think that you might start trying maybe virtual house clearings and ghosts, ghost transitions? Like you could just have somebody draw a blueprint of their house and send it to you, and then you can kind of tune in that way? Well,
I've had some experiences where I actually had a spirit come to me from California. I talked to a guy on the phone. I could tell there was a female and a male in the house. Later that night, she did come to me, and I could see her very clearly and had a little dialogue with her and actually helped her to transition. But it's not, it's more difficult when you're doing it long distance. We used to have a team member named Jennifer who was really good at that. And I did have some requests from different states. And at that time, she would call the client up and do some work and do that. But it's, I think it's probably better for people to try to find someone right there in their area so they can go right in the space and interact with the energy right there. It's a lot easier, in my experience, to get the information that way.
Very cool. I mean, there's not a lot of spirit rescuers yet, but there will be.
Yeah, I have heard, some reports of groups that are using mediums for some of this work. And I'm actually working on a guidebook. Spirit has told me we need to have a book, and there are some out there already, but there needs to be a simple book for teams that are considering the possibility they can do a little bit more than just gather evidence. So I'm working on that, and it'll have all the methods that we use, and I've learned from mediums and developed over the years. So I plan to publish that maybe early next year. And,
that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Spirit Rescue for Dummies.
There are
that we look forward to. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe we connect with you again then.
Okay, that'll be great. Yeah.
Wow. This has been pretty awesome. I love hearing about this. Like, it's just, what you do is just amazing.
So I know.
Well, thank you. It's kind of a passion. I mean,
yeah, this is up our alley.
Yeah. When I first started out, I was looking for proof that there's an afterlife. And there's a theater north of Memphis, a little town. And we had heard reports of a little girl there that people have seen for years and years. She's always wearing a Victorian style dress. Looked like she's about 9 or 10 years old. And so we went in there. I was with a different group at the time. This was early on when I was relying mostly on equipment. And we went in there, and it was interesting. I find that spirits are really selective about who they'll interact with. And so we had a lot of equipment set up in this theater, both upstairs and downstairs. And this little girl imprinted her voice on two different, one on a video recorder and one on an audio recorder. And she sounded really, really distressed. And so it was a long thing she said on the recording. So we went back in there, and I got the idea to take some music from her time period. And when we were playing it one night, she actually spoke out loud. And I have a recording of that on our website. But at that time, I really did not know much about spirit rescue. And, we would sit and we'd say, we'd talk to her and we'd say, well, go to the light, go to the light. Well, that's like me saying, go to Hawaii, but not telling you how to get there, right? How are you going to get there? So now we know how to connect them very easily. But at the time we didn't. So she's actually, I think she's still there because about, 10 years ago, I went there with a medium. We went to a Christmas play, and I could feel her energy there. And I said, do you see her anywhere? And she said, yeah, they were doing a Christmas production. She said she's on the stage dancing with the rest of the people there. So apparently she's okay. But we're trying to work with another local group in that area to get permission to go back in there. I'd love to talk to her some more now that I have more information about how to help her, and see if she might be more inclined to release and transition now. But when she interacted with us, she singled out 2 people. And another case I've had of selective spirits is Jennifer. When she was working with us, Jennifer and Kayla and I went to a house, and we connected with this lady back in the back bedroom. She was so 80s. She had big hair. She had jangly jewelry. I mean, she was right out of the 80s. And she was really flamboyant, really fun. And we helped her. Actually, her boyfriend came for her. It was interesting because sometimes used to ask for the perfect loved one to show up, but now they just kind of show up automatically. But we were going through the house. She was there. There was another spirit there. And then when we got to the end where we were going to tell the homeowners what we had found there, Jennifer spoke up and said, well, I've had this young man come to me, and he's in the military. And she started describing him. Well, it turned out it was one of the comrades of the man, the homeowner, male homeowner. They had served together in Iraq. So Kayla and I, he did not send any information at all to us. He focused specifically on Jennifer for some reason, and we weren't even aware he was there. So he really narrowed his focus to her, and she was able to give a really healing message to the friend, to the homeowner there, from his friend there that had been killed in Iraq.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been such a powerful moment in his life. I mean, I just couldn't even, that's heavy but beautiful,
Yeah.
Very intense. One of our audience members has a question, which I've never heard of this. She said, is spirit rescue the same as psychopumping? I'm not sure what that is.
I'm not familiar with that term. She may be referring to assisting spirits in some way. And again, I feel like in my experience, you would think like the angelics or a relative would be able to just, when someone gets stuck here or gets confused, they'd be able to come to that person and interact with them. But again, there's a vibrational difference that I've noticed, experienced. And so it does take someone who has the abilities to hear the thoughts of the earthbound spirit and to also make a connection to their loved ones, because it's like they're on different planes of frequency. And, right now where each of us is sitting, there's all types of TV transmissions and radio transmissions beaming through our homes and everything, but we're really not aware of them unless we turn on the TV receiver, right? So I think a lot of times those transmissions are going on, but they just don't know how to perceive them or to tune in to that frequency. So it's kind of our job to make that connection between the two levels of vibrational frequency.
Okay. Yeah, she says it means escorting disincarnates to where they need to go if they're lost and stuff.
Yeah, that's basically what we're doing. Yeah, we're not escorting them so much as making them aware of the loved ones who want to have them rejoin them. Yeah.
You're like their travel agent.
Yeah.
You make all the arrangements, get them connected, and
Well, like Alice, when she comes, when working with the child spirit, what she'll always do is walk up and take them by the hand. And if the loved one is right there nearby, it's almost like she will turn them around and they're able to suddenly see. And it's almost like she amps up their awareness too. So all of a sudden they're able to see that person who's right there nearby, who's always been there right, really close, waiting patiently for them to transition. But it's just like they don't see them or hear them for some reason. They're not aware of them.
So it's almost
they're
like
kind
a
of stuck between the
haunting.
veils. Almost. That's the way.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, go ahead, Rhonda.
I said, sorry, I know I'm in and out. I said they're kind of stuck between the veils, so they can't really, they can't really project into this world fully or see into the next. So they're kind of stuck between the curtains.
Yeah, and sometimes
Almost.
it's not like they're stuck between two stuck between the veils. They're stuck in their own mind. Maybe a kind of a mental loop thing that's going on. We came across this young girl in a closet in a home in Midtown Memphis, turn of the century home, and all she would say is, "The house is on fire." So that was her last thought, her last memory before she perished. And she was just frantic, and that was all she was saying over and over and over. So we are energy channels, and we're able to project a love, a higher vibrational energy, kind of a love vibration to them. And a lot of times that will help them break out of that mental loop they're in. And once we did that, she calmed down immediately, and we were able to she was actually aware of us at that point, and we had a conversation with her and explained to her that she could be with her loved ones. They've been waiting on her, and someone showed up immediately. I think it was a grandmother. And so we were able to point her to the grandmother, and then she immediately left. So who knows how long she would have been stuck in that mental loop there if we hadn't been called in.
It's cool.
We could talk all day, but we don't want to keep it too far.
This has been amazing, though. Very fascinating. Very fascinating.
Yeah. I love this stuff. Woo.
Yeah. I mean, just like you think about all the different levels of it, different layers, of just that experience of helping a spirit cross over. And wow, I'm so in awe of what you do. And I really, really hope that becomes more mainstream than ghost investigations themselves, ghost, all the other stuff that they do with the taunting and everything. I really hope that fades away and people start to become more aware.
Yeah, I was, when I started working on my book back in the spring, I was looking for some history of spirit rescue, and there's really not that much out there, but I came across a YouTube video, and way back in 1978 or 79, in the first season of a show called In Search Of, it was actually narrated by Leonard Nimoy, who was Mr. Spock on Star Trek. And in the very first episode, there's a segment with Hans Holzer, and he was an investigator in that time period, a paranormal investigator, but he worked with mediums. And so they showed this visit that he made to a house in New England somewhere with a very gifted medium. And as soon as they walked into this room, she said, "Yeah, there's this lady standing at the window, and she's looking out the back of the house here." And so Hans started asking a bunch of questions for the medium to get answers for. And they got all this information, and he went to the town historian, and it all checked out, who this lady was and where she lived. She lived in a house that was right behind this house. And so at the end of that segment, they did a spirit rescue. They helped her transition. And I've often wondered, if everyone had gone down that road instead of this equipment evidence type road that most of the shows focused on these days, how many more spirits could have been helped along the way? But that was quite amazing. That was 42 years ago, and they were actually showing spirit rescue on television.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Well, it's time for it to be, like the mainstream thing. It's time for it to be out there more. And it's people like you who are paving the way. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I have a really important question for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A really, really tough question that we ask everyone.
Okay.
If you had to choose a song to be the theme song of your life, what would it be?
Okay. There's an artist named I think her name is Natalie Grant, I believe. I believe she's a Christian artist, but she has some really beautiful songs. And there's one song that I really like of hers. It's called "I Will Be." I will be, and it talks about. If I remember the lyrics, I think it says, "I will be a candle in the darkness. I will be the hand of heaven above." And then she talks about, "I will be the hope among the hopeless." So that's kind of where I am with all of this. I feel like we've been really blessed to to work with all these different guides and beings that are helping us in this work, and we're actually able to make to affect a positive change in people's lives. Spirit rescue is really multi-level. It really is, because not only are we helping those lost and confused spirits, like the little girl in the closet, but it also helps the homeowners, because once we go in and connect with these spirits and help them transition, then everything returns to normal pretty much. The people, their lives go back to normal. And many times we will also go into homes where someone has awakened to their intuitive gifts. And so we do a lot of counseling with them too, in terms of trying to explain to them how they can work those gifts if they want to at this point, or they can learn how to shut them down and come back to them later. So we'll recommend books and classes and different things like that. So it's really multi-level. It is.
Yeah. And you're like the mystic rung for those who haven't been able to cross over, the bridge, like you say. But yeah, you're not just helping the living and those who are stuck, but also those who are waiting, the angelics and the guides that are helping also. Like, there's just so many different parts of this that, it's
right.
a team effort, and a beautiful team effort. What an awesome collaboration.
Yeah, it is a team effort. We couldn't do it without our allies on the other side. And occasionally we'll run into situations where there are spirits who are wanting to cause harm, and it's a free will choice. But when they're harming our clients or terrorizing children repeatedly, and there's no chance they're going to change that, then we do call all those allies on the other side, and we kind of say, hey, this is what's going on. Will you please decide what to do here? And many times they'll remove those spirits. I guess they take them to some kind of correctional facility. Or, I don't know where they go, but I've had situations where one time
attitude adjustment. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a spirit at a school. He was a janitor maintenance guy, and he stepped in between. We were at the point where we were helping a little girl connect with her father. Her father had come, and this guy stepped in between them because he had kind of set up his own little kingdom there, and I don't think he wanted any spirits that were under his control or cowering under his threats or whatever to leave. And I called on one of our allies, and I was actually doing a training workshop. I had about 8 people in my workshop, and they all said this really bright light came down the hallway. And after that, the medium that I was with said, whoa, they took him away.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
That's
Will
cool.
be hurt, or
Not for punishment. I don't think that it's for punishment. It's for
no.
attitude adjustment.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of counseling that goes on, but basically what they're doing is taking them out of that current situation where they can't interfere. Yeah.
What an amazing show today. This has been awesome.
It goes against lots of laws.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Steve.
For sure.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it, and I'm always eager to talk about spirit rescue. Not too many people, we have our website is memphisghostinvestigations.com, but I would really we do have a website that's memphisspiritrescue.com that points to that other one, but not that many people are familiar with spirit rescue. So, when people are having these disturbances in their homes, they're going to search for something like ghost or that type of thing. And so you just have to work with what's available. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, everyone on our show today, our audience has been absolutely enjoying this so much. So many positive comments. Bless you, brother. Thank you for sharing. From Teresa Holmes. Teresa Clan says Stephen's energy is perfect for this work. I just lost it. People are commenting.
Thank you.
She said calm and safe and compassionate, exactly what they need. Wanda Peterson Pandachuk says, so interesting, awesome show today. So people are more and more open to it. I think that's what matters, is that people are becoming more open to this idea and this concept, and more passionate about it as well, because we're realizing that while we all may have some sort of interest in the paranormal, there's a purpose for it beyond just the interest. There's a part of being of service to others that we can all show up and point the way. So if we know somebody like you who does this work and can help people understand it more, we're so happy to be able to share that.
There are some books out there I would like to mention. In fact, up in your area, Bex, there's Amy Major. He's written a couple of books, and then a lady way back in 2006, English medium, Wanda Davidson, I believe, wrote a book. So there are a few out there on Amazon. They're a little bit more complicated, I think, than the methods that I use. What I'm trying to do with this guidebook that I'm writing is to make it really simple for anybody who wants to explore the idea of helping these earthbound spirits when they come across one. Because the methods that we use are very effective. We go into someone's home, we're in there an hour or two, and then we rarely ever have to go back. And the only time we've ever had to go back is when someone has been very, very intuitive and they've attracted more spirits. And then we'll actually go back and help the spirits that they've attracted, and then spend more time with them trying to explain how they can work with those gifts or learn how to throttle them down a little bit. Yeah.
Right. I feel like that's probably something you're going to experience more of now that people are awakening and intuition's becoming more and more online. And yeah, we're finding that a lot more people are waking up to their abilities. So you're probably going to get really busy.
Yeah. The books I've always recommended when someone is awakening to their abilities are books by Sonia Choquette.
Oh, yeah.
We love her.
Yeah.
Amazing medium from Chicago.
Yeah.
She's probably
excellent. Yeah.
I've probably made her a millionaire many times over because I've recommended 2 of her books. And one's called Trust Your Vibes.
Yes.
And that's about learning how to understand and work with energy. And then one's called Ask Your Guides. And that talks about our spiritual entourage that's around us, our helpers. And so anybody that's out there that's awakening to their gifts, those are great starting points. Also, I'd like to mention a book by Kyle Gray. He's an English medium. And I think it's Raise Your Vibration.
Yes, he's my mentor. Yeah.
That's an awesome book. It's kind of a day-by-day practice. He's broken it down, and that's a wonderful book. So
yeah,
definitely channeled from spirit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we love his work. We've been trying to get him on the show. We keep sending our guides to talk to his guides. So we give him the nudge.
Great. I'd love to see that.
It would be amazing. But yeah, I think, honestly, my biggest takeaway, aside from the spirit rescue, is that we've had a really tough year this year. So many of us. 2020 has been insane. We've been going through a lot of emotional stuff. A lot of really important shifts have been taking place in our lives, really guiding us to go within and peeling back the layers of density and trauma and all the things that we've been experiencing, we've been holding on to and not sure how to let go of. And this is so important for us to be able to see that we are doing this process. We're going through these clearings one after another for exactly this reason, to help us be able to raise our vibration and step into being lighter, being freer, so that when we do get to that point of our time, to cross over, we're not being held back by anything, that we get to freely move on. And I think that with that awareness now, that's going to help me not feel so resistant when another change comes in or when another clearing starts to happen. It's beautiful to be able to see it from that perspective. So thank you.
Yes, definitely. I've never come across an earthbound Native American spirit in these 18 years I've been working. So my takeaway from that is the Native Americans were so far advanced spiritually than the Europeans that came here. In terms of being ready to transition into experience an afterlife. They were very comfortable with that idea. And I think if we can all strive towards that type of understanding and ease with the concept of the afterlife, it's going to be an easy transition for everyone.
Yeah, no attachment, just flow.
That's right.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been amazing. All right, we have to wrap it up, guys. It's been almost an hour. It's been amazing. It's gone so fast. But it's time for us to head on out. But before I go, I got a couple announcements. The winners from last 2 weeks, because last week we weren't live. So 2 weeks ago, the winner that won with Rhonda is Stephanie Lynn. So congratulations. Last week's winner is Rhonda Panda Chucky, won with Teresa. So congratulations, ladies. They will be getting a hold of you to schedule your readings. And please share this out, guys. This is such an important topic for people to be able to understand that there's so much more to, ghost experiences than just the experience. It's about being able to have compassion for that as well. Compassion for the being that may be stuck and finding ways to help them cross over, and finding amazing people like Stephen Williams here who can help do that. So thank you for showing up today, Stephen. Thank you for doing what you do. And we are so honored to have you here and to get to know your story.
Thank you. It's been a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful week.
We'll look forward to your book.
Namaste.
Yes, and we'll have you back, definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Can't
I
wait.
appreciate that.